Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. It's Carol Baskin from Big Cat Rescue, and today I want to talk to you about how to survive a character assassination attempt. Most of you know me from the hit series Tiger King and its narrative about a feud between me and Joe Exotic that culminated in a murder for hire plot that landed him in jail for 22 years. And there were other factors, of course, involved with him killing tigers and the such. But this is the kind of work that I have been doing since the 1990s, and that is to expose people who are abusing big cats, bring that to the awareness of the public and to law enforcement, and then really put pressure on law enforcement to enforce the meager laws that we have. And of course, that has resulted in trying to get better laws passed so that people can't abuse these animals in the first place. But what you guys are interested in is how do you survive an attack on your character in social media or the general media? And I think that I could absolutely speak to that after Tiger King Murder, Mayhem, and Madness was streamed into what I understand to be something like 64 million homes. And inexplicably, the producers seem to have chosen to flip that entire situation on its head and take the people who were exploiting and abusing big cats, paint them as these fun-loving, animal-loving heroes, and paint the person who was trying to end the abuse as the villain. It worked out financially for them, apparently, but it created a nightmare for us. And I am going to talk to you a little bit about what we do when we are attacked by the media or attacked in social media. And hopefully you will get some ideas from that in case anything ever happens to you that is that horrible. It took many months to undo the majority of the harm that was done by the producers of Tiger King Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. And this is kind of a 2020 hindsight review of what worked and what didn't, in the hopes that maybe if you are ever in such a situation that you will be able to act quicker and more effectively than I did. There are two reasons why people might attack you. One is if you've done something wrong. And two is if they think you have done something wrong. So let me talk about the first one first. You've done something wrong. I've done something wrong. Back in the 1990s, when we rescued our first bobcat, and later 56 bobcats from a fur farm, we had no idea what we were doing. And I reached out to the local zoo to ask them, how do I take care of 56 bobcats, Canada lynx, and Siberian lynx? And they promptly hung up on me because I was part of that pet trade. I was part of the problem that I didn't even know existed yet. So the only people I could turn to for advice were the breeders and dealers and people who were profiting off of captive-born exotic cats. And they were saying things that sounded right, things that people still believe today, that these animals are going extinct, which is true, but they said that breeding them in captivity would prevent that. That made sense to me. If there aren't enough of them in the wild, then what you need to do is make more, right? I mean, that's what Tim Stark said in Tiger King, except they're wrong. And the reason they're wrong is way more than what we need to get into for this, but it's wrong. They do not need to be bred in captivity to save them in the wild. In fact, it's actually causing the extinction of the cat in the wild. And I can tell you all you would ever want to know about that, but just not today. So I was doing what I was told was the best way to save these animals for future generations. And I started breeding some of the really rare cats. I never bred lions or tigers, but some of the smaller cats like ocelots, we felt like these were very rare and should be bred for future generations. We thought that there would be some kind of a release program for them, which there's not, and it never will be for a lot of reasons that I don't want to go into right now, but we do on our website. And so based on that wrong information, I did things that were wrong, and I bred cats. And I believed that there were people out there like me who loved these cats and would sacrifice anything to take care of them for the rest of their lives. And so I sold cats. I wasn't as keen on that as my husband was. He was really big into selling cats. I had figured out by about 1995 that nobody was going to take care of these cats the way they needed to be taken care of for the rest of their lives. And so that's when I started spaying and neutering cats. And then by 97 had quit breeding cats altogether, with a couple of rare accidents that happened with cats that I thought were too old to breed, and one case where I thought the cat had been fixed and it hadn't. But at any rate, those were things that I did that was wrong. I bred cats and I sold cats, and as soon as I discovered that that was wrong, I came clean about it. And that's the important part, I think. If you think about all of the times that the media has really gone wild with people who have done something wrong and then denied it or tried to cover it up, that's what people can't stand. They don't want you to get away with that. They want you to be held accountable. They want you to suffer for having done something wrong, because that will make them feel better. And I think that that's the only way you can deal with something like that. So as soon as I discovered what I was doing had been wrong, I came out and said so. And it wasn't just that I came out and said so. I said so everywhere. I said so to the media. I said so on our website, which gets millions of visitors a year. I said so on a humongous sign that we hung in the tour waiting area for people that came to tours, talking about how we had been part of the pet trade and that we had bred cats and sold cats and discovered the error of our ways and had stopped doing that. And so I think that's the only way you can deal with something if the situation is that you were wrong. You got to admit it. You got to tell everybody in the world that you did it. And you have to be willing to take all of the beating that people feel like they are so entitled to give you for having done something that was wrong. And I think it's worthwhile to go through that, because if other people can see that you made a mistake and that you're willing to be held accountable for that mistake, then I hope and I think that it gives them the courage to do the same thing. And I think the world would be a much better place if we all took responsibility for everything that we do. So I think that's the only method for something if you've done something wrong. But most of this talk is not going to be about having done something wrong, because I think most of the time when you're taking grief from the public, it's not because of something that you did that was wrong. It's because the public thinks you did something wrong, and there's usually somebody who has an agenda driving that. So let's talk about that. There's kind of two subsets here to people thinking that you did something wrong that you didn't. One of them is that I have found in dealing with the media that they never get it right. And even in cases where they have invited me to write an article that they would then post and take credit for having written the article, they'll still get it wrong. They will mess something up just to customize it enough to make them feel like they were part of it, and they'll either make something totally up or they'll get some fact wrong. So a really easy example is back in the 90s, we were on 40 acres. We're on 67 now, but back then we were on 40 acres, and it seemed like inevitably whoever it was writing the article would say that we were on 4 acres or 400 acres. And those are not big details, except that it causes me a lot of trouble, because if people hear that you have 200 cats on 4 acres, they lose their minds, and should. And if people hear that you have 400 acres in a developed area of Tampa, the people who want to buy that real estate will drive you insane trying to buy it out from under you. And so even a simple thing like that that's not meant with any malice or harm can still cause you an awful lot of grief, because the media just cannot get it right. And I learned decades ago not to read the press, because they don't get it right. I mean, if they get something that simple wrong when I've even written something out for them, then it tells me that they're probably not capable of getting anything else right either. So you've always got that kind of a dynamic going on, where you've got the media saying things, and their agenda is to sell eyeballs. They want eyes on those ads, whether it be print ads or video ads or audio ads. They make their money off of advertising, which means they have to have the most listeners, the most viewers, and they give them headlines to tempt them into coming there in the hopes that they will stay long enough to sell them something. and you are just the fodder. Your story does not matter to them. They don't want to tell your side. They don't want to set the story straight. None of the lies that they tell you about that are true. They are only there to sell advertising, and everything else is just a matter of them reaching that goal. So I've seen an awful lot of situations where the headlines would be just horrible as far as what they were saying. But if you read the article itself, it really wasn't like that. And I think it's because they know most people are never going to read the article. They are only going to read the headlines. And then you end up suffering because everybody else then repeats those headlines and keeps spreading those memes and those very simplistic ideals that simple people can wrap their heads around, because people aren't going to bother to do the research necessary to get to the truth. The other subset of that scenario is that you have somebody who really hates you, and they are going to the press and they are going on social media and disparaging you. There could be a number of reasons why they do that. Maybe you are a competitor. Maybe they associate you with something that is troubling in their own life. Like, one of the things that I discovered after Tiger King was that the demographic of people who say they hate me the most are middle-aged women who have lost their husbands to a younger woman. Well, I can understand how that demographic would hate me so much, because I was painted as this gold-digging homewrecker, which was not at all what happened. But because that's what people believed, they could really associate with hating on somebody who represented to them something that was very painful in their lives. And so when that subset is hating on you, it may not even be because they know you at all. It's just because of what's been happening in their lives. And I think that's kind of the underpinning for all of this. It's whatever people have experienced in their own lives that will cause them to either glom on to anything that's negative about a person or a type that they do not like. People who during COVID were frightened. We were all scared to death. People were dying by the hundreds of thousands, and we were so worried about our mothers and our grandmothers and our fathers and our grandfathers, and worried for our families' livelihoods. How were they going to survive in a world that had completely shut down? And so everybody was so fearful during that period of time that they needed somewhere to focus their angst and their anger at being in this situation that they couldn't control. They may not be able to control whether or not COVID was going to strip them of their loved ones or of their income, but what they could control is what they posted on social media. And an awful lot of people jumped into posting all kinds of hateful memes about me as a result of how they were feeling about their own lives, not because of who I was. And I think that's the key whenever you're looking at these kinds of attacks, if they're on you, is what is the underlying motivation? These memes are pretty personal, but I don't take them personally because they don't define who I am. I can't change what people say or think about me. I can't change what they post or say online. And it doesn't matter because that's not who I am. I can't change what they do, but I have all of the power when it comes to how I'm going to react to this. I can choose to react by feeling betrayed or persecuted or angry or wronged. What does that serve me? It doesn't help at all. It just makes me feel bad. And I'm not going to let these people who are being hateful and cruel or just clueless, I'm not going to let them define how I'm going to feel in this world. So that's where the first step is, I think, for your mental health when you are being attacked, is to know that the awful things that people might say about you say so much more about them than it does about you. But then what do you do about it? I mean, in addition to just feeling at peace with yourself and understanding that we have all of the choice when it comes to how we are going to react to something, then what do we do to actually change the narrative out there, if it matters? And in some cases, I don't think it matters at all. But in other cases, it may affect other things going forward for you. So if somebody is saying that I have a hidden agenda and that it's my plan to own all the tigers in the world, which is what people like to say about me, which is just absurd, since I don't think any tiger should be in a cage, then when people are saying that about me, does that affect my life in any way? And it does, because I'm fighting for a federal bill that would ban private possession of big cats. And so if it is widely believed out there that I don't believe in that bill, then who would take me seriously? So I have to address it, even though it doesn't matter as far as in a personal level what those people are saying or what they think. It does matter as far as getting on with my business. So that's what I'm going to talk about, is how can you get on with your business in the best way that you can when you've got this kind of thing going on. Take the high road. I know it can be hard, but you don't know what's going on in the lives of the people who are attacking you, and it never hurts to take the high road. And be absolutely honest. And what I mean by that is, whenever you say something that is your opinion, you should say it's your opinion. You may say, I think that person is saying this because they XYZ. But to say that person is saying this because of XYZ, you don't know that for sure. You might think you know it for sure, but try to only take a position that you can absolutely defend. And so that should always be honest. I think honesty is the best policy. And I think putting your message into a place like a website where people can find it through searching the internet is really important. You can put it on your social sites, but it's going to get pushed down. The message is going to get lost. You need to have it someplace where people can always access it. So in the beginning, when I made the wrong mistakes of breeding some of these small cat species, I put that on our website. And later, after I was so brutally attacked in Tiger King, I created a page at bigcatrescue.org/Netflix that went minute by minute through that program and said, when you saw this on the screen or you saw people saying these things about me, here's the evidence to the contrary that I had produced to the producers or they had access to and just chose not to present. And so by putting all of that evidence out there, people can then make up their own minds. You're probably not going to hear from most of those people. You're only going to hear from the people who believed the stupid things they believed and wanted to share that regardless of the truth. And so it'll seem like those are the most powerful voices, but I can assure you that is not the case. There are a lot of really smart people that hear something, they might even believe something, but they will actually take the time to find out on their own, is this really true? And once they find out it's true, they don't have a dog in that fight, to use an awful analogy from the animal world. So they don't have any reason to go out there and defend you, but you've satisfied their curiosity because you've made that available to them in a way that they could find it when they searched. And I think it's really important to lay it all out there, the good, the bad, the ugly. I put it all out there in a way that people will consume it. Even though I put all of that text out there, that's for the search engines. It's not for people. I don't think people read that much anymore. So I've started doing it in video blogs where I put every day of my diary is out there on the internet, and every day I release a new day from my diary because I feel like that honesty is the best policy. If people have questions about who I am, here's everything about who I am. If you really want to know who I am, you can find out who I am. And I think the same should be true for all of us. If we want people to know who we are, and I think we should, I think it's important that we live the kinds of lives that we would want people to know what those lives are about, then it should be available to them in a way that the search engines can find it so that they can find it and that they can consume it in a way that they like to consume content. Going forward from that, 2 more tips, and then I'll be done. Stick to the message. My message is I see a world where all wildcats live free. And no matter how many times I give interviews to people who just want to rehash the idiocy that they saw in Tiger King, I will use that opportunity to get the message out there that we have to protect big cats from being bred for life in cages if we are ever going to save them in the wild. I have a really simple mission. You probably have a mission too. I don't know what your mission is. Your mission may be very financially based, like you want to sell the most houses, or you want to sell the most cars, or you want to be the best consultant or coach. Those are all good goals to have. So get that information out there in such a compelling way that people forget about the stupid stuff and start thinking about the important stuff. And you're going to have to find ways to make that more entertaining than the stupid stuff, because people want to be entertained. They don't want to be educated. They want to be entertained. So finding a way that you can entertain them and bring them around to whatever it is that you believe in, that you want them to know about you, then that is going to be really, really important. Just keep going back to whatever your core message is. And then last, be prolific. The way the internet works is that whatever is the most popular and the most recent is what people will find. And so even though it may be a whole lot more popular to hate on me, as people have done after Tiger King, and that's probably going to be true for many years into the future, because it was such a perfect storm that caused so many people to jump on board with it. But you also have the opportunity to be prolific and to always be doing interviews, doing any outreach you possibly can, getting your message out there over and over and over again, so that when people are searching your name or your business name, they will find not only whatever the horrible thing was, but they will find all of this other content that you have put out there that has stayed on message. And I think that's the best that any of us can do in a world where people just often do not think before they post things online. We can change that by being loving and thoughtful and generous to them in our attitudes as to why they do the things they do, and we will all benefit as a result. Stay cool, cats. Mwah!